नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति-विकास-स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति-वेदांत-स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Right? So yesterday we discussed the first 4 verses in this chapter. So Arjuna is raising the question. Arjuna is requesting the Lord to explain about some of the terms. He wants to know what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, what is Kshetra, what is Kshetrajna, what is Jnana, what is Jnaya. And in the rest of this chapter, Krishna will elaborate on all these topics. So yesterday we discussed about Kshetra and Kshetrajna. And we also discussed how the Lord is aware of all the Kshetras. He is aware of the entire field, and we are aware of our own Kshetra. We have knowledge about our own Kshetra. So on the 2 Kshetrajnas, so one is the Jiva, another one is the Supreme Lord Himself, who is seated as Paramatma in the heart. And also yesterday we discussed how the Mayavadis, how they misinterpret the statements of the scriptures. And then what they try to do, they try to explain that everything is one. That is only everything is same, everything is one. There is no duality. They are trying to explain that. There is no duality means that everything is one. But here Krishna himself in the verses, if you just remember, if you see the text number 3, Krishna very nicely puts it together. You see here in this shloka, Kshetrajnam cha apimam. Krishna says, Kshetrajnam cha apimam viddhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. It's a simple, Prabhupada very easily just defeats the entire arguments of the Mayavadis. Kshetrajnam cha apimam. So there is also one more knower of the field. Cha means also. So very easily we can understand this point. When we say in room number 203, there is also Shadbhuj Prabhu staying. When I say that, that means someone else is there and also Shadbhuj Prabhu is staying there. It's very clear, isn't it? When we say also. So here Krishna is saying that Kshetrangnam cha apimam. Also, mam viddhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Then if you see the commentary of Srimad Ramanujacharya for this verse, a very many pages it runs to, he just goes on giving so many references, quotations, blasting the impersonal conception. Yesterday also we discussed those points. If God and the Jiva are one, why you have to hear the Bhagavad Gita? Don't hear the Bhagavad Gita. To whom he is instructing to? Because everything is one. If Maya is superior to the Lord, then how then Maya should take a superior position. But God is, everything is under His control. That's the definition of God. So like that, there are so many refutations that we already discussed in the 2nd chapter. Also we saw in one of the commentaries, Bhakti Vidyabhushan Prabhu is also commenting, he is very clearly saying about the snake and the rope. Gives an example. Because there is rope and there is snake. There are 2 different entities. Now if you misunderstand the rope to be snake, then it's a misunderstanding. So now to compare, actually it is snake if you say, and how do you say there is something called a rope and there is snake? So that means in reality there are 2 objects existing. Are you able to follow? So it doesn't make any sense to say everything is one. So your understanding of rope to be snake is wrong. So yesterday we heard this, Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu is defeating this idea. Very clearly we say this rope is not snake. So that's what they say, no? Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. This Jagat is not Mithya, Jagat is temporary. This is our understanding. It's a temporary place. And when we try to falsely identify ourselves with this world, we try to enjoy this world, and that is a dreamy state. Not that, our existence itself is total dream, in the sense that we, somebody is going to beat me or going to punch me, I'm going to get pain. I'm identifying with this body. So these are all, there are so many discussions. So that is the thing. Now, Krishna, let's go to text number 5. And also yesterday we discussed how Krishna is going to explain about the various reasons how the soul has come to this material world, how it came in contact with the body, what are the causes, and how the transform, how sometimes it is happy, sometimes it is in distress. So that was discussed in text 4. And in text 5, now we will discuss that. Krishna, this very complex subject matter, the subject matter of duality, regarding whether who is a Kshetra, who is a Kshetrajna, both same. To support this, Krishna is explaining that even the great rishis, the great personalities have in details discussed this from all the scriptures. He specifically speaks about the Brahma Sutras. In the Vedanta Sutras, through the Vedanta Sutra, they have established this fact. Which fact? That there is duality. Okay. Rishibhir Bahuda Gitam Chandovir Vividhai Pratak Brahma Sutra Padaishchaiva Hetumadbhir Vinishchitaihi. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So Brahma Sutra Padaishchaiva, meaning this is a Brahma Sutra refers to the Vedanta Sutra. And what it is establishing with all reasoning about the cause and the effect. Hetu Madbhir Vinishchitaihi. Hetu Madbhihi means with cause and effect, it gives the very Vinishchitaihi means very clearly establishes. So see, Krishna himself, he says what is Kshetra, what is Kshetrajna. And how Krishna is presenting it here. Did you see that? He's saying that even the great rishis, Rishibhihi, Chandogi, they are referring to the scriptures, Guru Sadhu Shastra. So that is also Krishna is teaching. That's how we understand everything. That's how we should learn everything. So Srila Prabhupada, he establishes immediately, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. So when we say something, we quote from Parampara. We quote from the standard books of scriptural knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. These are the books from which we speak. We don't say something that comes fresh out of our mind. So yesterday we discussed that point. Now, see what Prabhupada is saying. Krishna is explaining the most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and super soul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. So remember, we discussed in our epistemology class and the classes before the Isha Upanishad as well about Prasthanatraya. Prasthanatraya means there are three evidences: Shruti Prasthana, then Smriti Prasthana, and then Nyaya Prasthana. Right? So one of the important evidences is from the Vedanta Sutra. So Krishna is pointing out that you see the Vedanta Sutra also clearly establishes the duality of the two. Not that everyone is same. Now the entire Vedanta Sutra is about all this discussion. And also we can see in so many Upanishads, the topic is often being discussed. Whether the Jiva and the Paramatma, they are dual or they are same. The duality exists. Okay. Now Prabhupada further says, first he says this is according to different sages. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage, and in the Vedanta Sutra duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasadeva's father Parashara is also a great sage, and he writes in his books of religiosity. So books of religiosity is what? Smritis, we heard. Yagyavalkya Smriti, Parashara Smriti. So many Smritis are those who gives the religious codes of conduct. Manusmriti, like that. Aham tvam cha tatanye. We, you, I, and the various other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. See here, we are engaged in material body, but the Lord is transcendental. Another point also we are deriving from here, that we are transcendental, but we are now conditioned because of the material body. Prabhupada goes on to again explain about the duality. Yeah, he explains, now we are fallen into the ways of the three modes of material nature according to our different karma. The higher and lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the super soul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul, the super soul, and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parashara is considered principal among them. So there are many sages who have given references from various Upanishads as well to establish this point of duality. That has to be very clearly understood. And also, if you see, when we go ahead in this Bhagavad Gita chapters, when it comes to 15th chapter, there is something called, we will discuss on that, called Trishloki, 3 verses. Krishna summarizes the entire message of the Vedas in 3 verses. So in that one shloka he says, Uttamah Purushastvanya Paramatmet Yudahritaha Yolokatraya Vishyam Vivartavya Ishwaram. Krishna Uttamah Purushastvanya, he says. There are so many living entities, but there is one person who is Uttama, who is topmost. So like that, Krishna also very clearly establishes the difference between the soul and the super soul. This is a very important subject matter. We should be very clear in understanding the duality. If you don't understand that, if you think everything is same, then it's all, we have lost our purpose of our study of the scriptures. Everything is completely lost. That's why these topics are again and again repeated. Okay. The word Chandobihi refers to the various literatures. The Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is a branch of the Yajurveda, describes nature, the living entity, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now again, there is one more reference here in the purport Prabhupada is explaining. As stated before, Kshetra is the field of activities, and there are 2 kinds of Kshetrajna, the individual living entity and the Supreme living entity. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahma Pucham Pratishta. There is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as the Annamaya, dependence upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. See, there are, if you see animals, insects, there are so many who are, even there are some living entities who are, all they know is food. Food is for them life. Just food is there, everything is there. That's it. They cannot think anything more than that. Simply they are craving for food. They cannot think more than that. So that is one level of realization. Annamaya. It's called as Annamaya Kosha. Covering. There are so many coverings. So one is completely stuck in that. If I get food, okay, happy with that. Then there is one step ahead. Then in Pranamaya, after realizing the supreme absolute truth in food, one can realize the absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. Now gradually, then in the Pranamaya situation, one is worried about his existence. He is seeing that he is in this particular body. Okay, I have to save myself. Prana, I have some more other work so hard just to save his life. Life is the only concern. Simply save one's life. For that, what is that? It's food and leading life. That's all. That's Pranamaya stage. Then comes the next stage called Jnanamaya. Realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling and willing. So life is not simply eating, sleeping, mating and defending, but then he goes on step ahead, wherein there are other things. I want to hear nice music, nice dress, there are some relationships, some different kinds of enjoyment. So all those things, and then he is concocting so many ideas with the mind, and so you see the progression. In the Annamaya, only food is the pradhana, or food is the importance. Then gradually saving one's life. in the Pranamaya stage. Then in the Jnanamaya stage, what is happening? One is with his mind, he's having various interests. He's studying different things. He wants to enjoy different things. So he's analyzing various things. There are different kinds of people. I belong to this country. He belongs to that country. So many different ideas he is coming up with in the Jnanamaya stage. So Prabhupada points out that in that stage, point of thinking, feeling and willing. So there he is gradually getting more into thinking, feeling and willing. In the previous stages, everything is very much restrained to eating and sustenance. That's all. There is no anything more. There is not much of thinking there. Here in the Jnanamaya, that thinking is there. Now comes the next stage. Then there is Brahman realization called Vijnanamaya, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. So, in this stage, what is in the Vijnanamaya, what is happening? Actually, he is coming to the point of realization that I am not this body, I am a spirit soul. This realization happens in this stage. Till the time, everything is done simply for gratifying the senses in various ways, intellectually, emotionally, all this thing gratification is doing. But when it comes to the stage of Vijnanamaya, what is his understanding? Then he goes, oh, I am not this body, I am a spirit soul. This much realization one gets. But that realization will give happiness to the soul? Just realizing that we are not this body, we are spirit soul. What is our understanding in so far having studied various chapters of the Gita? Will that satisfy the soul? You have realized you are not this body, you are spirit soul. Will that give happiness? Yes, you may be, that's the point, that's the Brahman platform. You may come to the level of Brahman, but the soul can be happy or satisfied when he is actually established in relationship with the Supreme Lord, when he is engaged in his service, then he gets the bliss out of that. Then he becomes really happy. Otherwise what happens? Arugya Krishrena Param Padam Tataha. He falls down back to the material world. Why? Because he is alone. There is no relationship he can build up. There is no service opportunity. Because the soul is hankering with so many desires. That service propensity is there. But that will be seen only when he is engaged in the service of the Lord. Okay. Now, Prabhupada goes on to explain. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of the all blissful nature. Thus, there are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahma Pucham. Out of these, the first 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya and Jnanamaya, involve the fields of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. So this is the point. So to get that Ananda, one has to transcend the 3 modes of material nature. So one level is, even if you go to the level of Vijnanamaya, then one has to go further, one step ahead to engage in the service of the Lord. By engaging the service of the Lord, one will experience the bliss. So that is the point. So there are different stages. So you see, the bliss also one derives only by engaging in the service. Otherwise it is not possible. So these are all the one explanation, that reference is given from the scriptures, from the Vedas itself. Actually it is the Varuna's son, that was Bhrigu. He was actually going and then approaching his father, asking that, so what is the perfection? So he says that go and then perform meditation. So he goes and then performs meditation, and then he comes up with the idea of Annamaya. Then he says Anna is the ultimate. Then his father says, no, go. Again he go and then perform meditation. Samor tapasya. Then he goes to the next stage. Then Pranamaya, he says. Then again further tapasya. Then he realizes, Jnanamaya. Then Vijnanamaya. Then Anandamaya. So this is from the Upanishads. This reference is given. Anyway, so the point here is that, so ultimately the Supreme Lord is the Anandamaya. So the Lord expands himself into all this, Pranamaya, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, Vijnanamaya, and then Anandamaya. So he is giving the opportunity for the realization of the soul to come back to him. Okay. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying Anandamayo Abhyasad. It's a very famous study. Everybody would have heard reading this in Prabhupada's several books. So this is a sutra The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya and Annamaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. See, again you see this is established, this point is established, that there are two, the Lord is Anandamaya, and we are meant to give pleasure to the Lord, and by giving pleasure to the Lord, we get happiness. Two distinct entities are pointed out from this. That means if the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is the point. So where is the question of both are true, same? If both are same, where is the question of one rendering service to other? Are you getting the point? And we can derive happiness only by this process, by rendering service to the Absolute. So this is the real picture of the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Knower of the field, the living entity as the subordinate knower, and the nature of the field of activities. One has to search for this truth in a Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. It is mentioned here that the codes of the Brahma Sutra are very nicely arranged according to the cause and effect. Some of the sutras or aphorisms are Naviyat Ashrute, Natma Shrutehe, Paratutat Shrutehe. The first aphorism indicates the field of activities, the second indicates the living entity, and the third indicates the Supreme Lord. You see, there are three Vedanta Sutras that Srila Prabhupada is quoting here, just to show that all these topics are in detail discussed in Brahma Sutra. So he is giving references. Naviyat Ashrute refers to the field of activities. Natma Shrutehe refers to the living entity. And Paratutat Shrutehe refers to the Supreme Lord, or as indicates the Supreme Lord, the Samam Bonam among all the manifestations of various entities. So by giving reference to these Vedanta Sutra, what is being shown here? It is very clearly shown in details. You can show that there are the dualities there, that there are field of activities, then there is the Kshetrajna, and there are two Kshetrajnas. What are the two Kshetrajnas? One is the spirit soul and then the Supreme Soul. So this is what Krishna is saying, that this is established by the Vedanta Sutra. Is it clear? Shall we proceed? Okay, the same Srila Prabhupada's commentary is very much perfectly in line with Baladev Vidyabhushan. We will go to the next two verses. Mahabhutanya buddhir avyaktamev cha indriyani dashaikam cha panchachendriya gocharaha ichchadvesha sukham dukkham sangataschetana dhritihi etat kshetrang samasena savikaram udahritam. The five great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. Now, in this verse, the field of activities is further detailed. What is this field of activities? What it is? So there are, we studied before also, there are 23 or 24 elements. All these 24 elements constitute the field of activities. And these 24 elements, when they interact, that results in the jiva getting engaged in a particular body, and as a result of identifying with a particular body, the jiva experiences sometimes hatred, sometimes he experiences happiness, sometimes distress, he comes up with various desires, and then he is implicated by this conditioning. So we understood, in the beginning we heard about the Kshetra. Why did we discuss about Kshetra? Because Kshetra is the field. The field is a place where the plowing is done. Where depending on what you plant, what seed you put, you get different kinds of, you get a particular tree. You plant pineapple seed, you plant a mango seed, you get mango tree. You plant Karela, then you get Karela. Karela's nature is bitter. Similarly, we have been engaged in a particular body. In this particular body, depends on what kind of activities we are going to perform. That activity is going to give a particular result. You do a good activity, you have good practice, good activities you perform, then you may end up with good results, pious results. You engage in sinful activities, then you are going to suffer the various reactions for sinful activities, you may go down to hell. Now, what is the platform we are getting to perform these activities? That platform is called the field of activities or the kshetra. And what is the kshetra? Krishna here is giving the details. What is the kshetra? Pancha Jnanendriya, Pancha Karmendriya, and then Pancha Bhutas, 5 great elements, and then the objects of the senses, 5 objects of the senses, 5 elements, and then 5 Karmendriyas, 5 Jnanendriyas. 4 into 5, this is 20. And then on top of it, mind, intelligence, false ego. So this forms another 3, 23. Then one more, that is Pradhana, Avyakta. All these elements, whatever that is there, all those things are in the subtle form, Avyakta form, unassembled form that is there, that is called as Pradhana. So all these things constitutes what? Constitutes of what? All these things together constitutes field of activities. That is what Krishna is explaining here. Okay. The 5 great elements, false ego. So I already read the translation. We will now discuss the purport. From all the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns and the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra, the components of this world can be understood as follows. First, there are earth, water, fire, air and ether. These are the 5 great elements. Yes. So it is called as a Mahabhuta. Mahabhuta are the 5 great elements. So if you study the Bhagavatam, the 2nd cantos and 3rd cantos, these topics are very elaborately discussed. How when the Lord there is a primary creation, there is secondary creation. In very details, these things are described. So there is the false ego, and then the false ego when there is an interaction, Mahatattva, when there is an interaction in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion, in the mode of ignorance. What are all the elements that are coming out? In very detail, the Bhagavatam discusses. So in the mode of ignorance, this Panchabhutas or the Mahabhutas, which is described here, that comes out. Earth, water, fire, air and ether. These are the 5 elements. Then there are false ego, intelligence and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. These 3 subtle elements are being discussed. What is that? False ego, intelligence and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of material nature. What is the unmanifested stage of 3 modes of material nature? That is the Pradhana. That is what is being discussed. So 5 plus 3, 8 we have seen so far. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge. Jnana Indriyas, this is what is called. Through eyes we can see, through ears we can hear the sound, eyes we can see the form, through ears we can hear the sound, through nose we can smell, and through tongue we can taste, and through skin we can experience the touch. So these are the 5 Jnana Indriyas. And then the 5 working senses. These are the 5 Karma Indriyas. Voice, legs, hands, anus and genitals. Then above the senses there is a mind, which is within and which can be called the sense within. This is again a subtle element. Mind is again a subtle element. Therefore, including the mind, there are 11 senses altogether. Okay. Then there are the 5 objects of the senses. I already told you that. Smell, taste, form, touch and sound. So, just for your clarification, I will again repeat. Pancha Mahabhutas. Then there is 5 Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Jnanendriyas. Mangal Vaishnav, you are a good mathematician. So it is 15. Okay. Then another 5. What is that? Objects of the senses. Objects of the senses are smell, taste, form, touch and sound. Yes. Yeah. So now this constitutes 20. Then there are 3 more things we spoke about. False ego, intelligence and Krishna also speaks about the mind. So, okay. 3. So this becomes 23. And then the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. That becomes 24. So now Prabhupada says, now the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. You see, that's all. This is all about. The kshetra is being explained. So we saw in the 4th verse, right? Krishna is saying, what is this field of activity? In details you explained. How the jiva comes in touch with the field of activity. All those things one by one we can see as the verses are unfolding. Krishna is going to discuss about These several topics. Interactions and representations of the 5 great elements. Then there are desire, hatred, happiness and distress, which are interactions, representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. I told you. So when the soul gets into this gross body, then by the interactions of all this, so what happens? Eyes are looking for gulab jamun, but nobody is giving. Then he becomes distressed. I'm just giving you as a vague example. So that's how the senses are interacting. When the senses trying to acquire, enjoy, he is getting little happiness, but soon he is getting frustrated because he is not happy with just 2 gulab jamuns. He wants more, but it is not available. So immediately distress. So like that, all the interactions of the senses and the mind within the field which is the kshetra of the body, all the interactions are happening. It is given to further vikaras. Vikaras are transformations. What are the transformations? Sometimes happiness, sometimes distress. Okay. The living symptoms represented by consciousness and convictions are the manifestations of the subtle body, mind, ego and intelligence. These subtle elements are included within the field of activities. The 5 great elements are a gross representation of the false ego, which in turn represents the primal stage of false ego, technically called the materialistic conception or tamasa buddhi, intelligence in ignorance. This further represents the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of material nature. The unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradhana. I explained you that. When before the creation happens, everything is in unmanifested stage. Just to give a simple example, so let's say then there is a computer, but if you just dismantle the computer, you dismantle the motherboard, the chips. Chips means I'm speaking about the RAM and so many other accessories. Everything you unassemble. When you come and see, it will be like a chaos. You can't understand everything. Now this pradhana, everything is in a subtle form. Everything is, all the elements are there. Everything is in subtle form. But then when the Lord desires about the creation, when the Lord engages in creation, when the jiva is showing the desire to enjoy, then immediately Lord makes all the arrangements. Then by his Icha Shakti, Kala Shakti, then when the Lord desires to glance at the pradhana, then it becomes agitated. Then it becomes into Mahatattva. Then everything creation happens. So that is the point here that is being discussed. This further represents the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of material, pradhana. Now, at the conclusion of this purport, Prabhupada is pointing out the body is the representation of all these factors. And what are all these factors? All these 24 elements is represented by the body. And there are changes of the body which are 6 in number. You see, vikaras are happening. Body is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, then it begins to decay. And at the last stage, it vanishes. Therefore, the field is a non-permanent material thing. However, the kshetrajna, the knower of the field, its proprietor is different. So this is the point. So there are 2 things being discussed, kshetra and kshetrajna, and then the elaborations of the kshetra, which are the 24 elements. All those points are discussed here. And then the transformations that happens, the happiness and distress, and then the body changes in the body, that is also being discussed. So that is what is the key point in this verse. Same points are conveyed by our previous acharyas also. Moving to the next purport. So now so far we have discussed about okay. There are several quotes of Prabhupada's lecture. When you get time, you go through it. You don't have much time, I will just go to the next verse. Again, coming to the important section of this chapter, there are Krishna defines what is, so we so far discussed the topic of kshetra, kshetrajna. Now Krishna is going to discuss about jnana. We also touched upon Prakriti as well, that also being discussed. Now, so Krishna is going to explain what is jnana. Also, it has been defined before. What is jnana? There is a definition that was given about the jnana. Can anybody say?
One who knows the Kshetra and Kshetrajna.
Correct. So one who is aware of the Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and the ultimate Kshetrajna is the Supreme Lord, who is controlling the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. Okay. Now, how to obtain knowledge? Krishna very elaborately discusses. This knowledge nobody in this world is giving. Nobody is aware of it. Nobody knows about it. So Krishna is going to elaborate on that. The Lord will describe in detail the two knowers of the field, who should be the real objects of knowledge, who are distinct from the above mentioned field. But first, in 5 verses, the Lord describes 20 factors which help in attaining this knowledge. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we repeatedly hear topics about the qualities. Just in the previous chapter we heard the qualities of devotees. In this chapter also we will hear several qualities which will actually help us to mold our lives. It will help us to make advancement. Okay, let's read the verse. So these 4 verses, I would recommend you to memorize these 4 verses. It's very important. Although it's not given in your list of verses to memorize, please learn this verse. Amanitvam adambitvam ahimsa shantirarjavam acharyopasanam shaucham stairyam atma vinigrahah indriyarteshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanu darshanam asaktir anabhishvanga putradhara grihadishu nityam cha samachittatvam Ishtanishtopapatishu Maicha yogena Bhaktir avyabicharini Vivikta desha sevitvam Aratirjana sansadim Adhyatma jnana nityatvam Tattva jnanartha darshanam Etaj jnanam iti proktam Ajnanam yadato nyata. We will go in details on all these qualities, but I'll read the translation now. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of the people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. Krishna very clearly says, everything else is ignorance, he says. Okay, let's, in the beginning of the purport, before Prabhupada starts to explain about the different qualities, he points out how the whole world in this modern days, people are not aware of proper knowledge. He's pointing out, this process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being the interaction of the field of activity. That means what? They are thinking everything to be ultimately matter. This is what they think, matter. They don't know anything more than the matter. But actually, this is the real process of knowledge. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching the absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements. And the process of knowledge as described here is the means to get out of it. So here Krishna is giving the process by which you can come out of this knowledge. Now this is a very important thing because whole world is just driving. There are so many universities, schools, colleges, so many different departments. Everything is discussing about what? This field of activities, interaction is 24 elements. They cannot go beyond that. They do not know anything beyond it. And if they see any phenomena which is beyond this, they put it in a separate box. They call it mythology or some philosophy. They say like that and then they cut off. But the reality, people do not know what happens to someone after death, where he goes, whether he's going to be born again, they do not know. The people cannot give explanation why we are suffering. They cannot give any explanation for that. Everything they identify as just interaction of matter. So that is being discussed. Now, the knowledge that Krishna is giving here is helping us to come out of our entanglement within this matter. That is an important. Prabhupada, one place also is discussing this. There is a story of a person, a simple person who used to row. He's a boatman who just rows the boat. There is one very big scholar. He wants to go across the river. He comes and boards the boat, and then he's just looking at the nice scenery, looking at the river, and then he was just looking at the fish, and then he just points out to this boatman, do you know about the varieties of fish? There are so many different kinds of fishes. Are you aware of it? So this person he's a scholar. He has done a lot of. There is a name I am not able to recollect. There is a name for the study of different kinds of fishes. Such an analytical study. They make this. What is the kind of wings it has got? How much it can travel, and all this kind of knowledge it has got. So he asked this boatman, so are you aware of this? Do you know about the varieties of fish and its different characteristics? This man was not so much aware. He said that, oh my goodness, you have wasted 25% of your life. He said this. What is the use of your rowing the boat? 25% of your life you wasted. So then they were just going around. Then when he was moving, he saw some beautiful birds flying around. Then he said, oh, you know what, this bird, actually it has migrated from this place. It stays here in this place for 6 months and it comes to this land and then it goes out. Do you know about all this knowledge? And then this boatman said that, sorry, I am not aware of it. I do not know about this. Then this boatman, then he said, oh my goodness, you wasted another 25% of your life. So he was speaking about that. Then they were just progressing little bit. They saw, suddenly the climate is changing. It's becoming little foggy, it's becoming little cloudy. And then he was asking about this. So do you know about meteorology? When the climate changes. So then the boatman said that, no, I do not know about meteorology also. You have wasted another 25% of your life, he said. So then the boatman said that, but let me tell you something. From my experience, seeing all these climatic conditions, it's going to be heavy rain. By the way, do you know how to swim? So this boatman, this scholar said that, oh, I do not know swimming. Watch out. So then, and also another thing we saw with this boatman was, while simple village man, every time in between you used to row the boat, he will be singing Hare Krishna. So this boatman, this scholar has no clue of swimming. He said that, watch out. It's going to be a heavy storm. Anything can happen. And if you do not know swimming, you are going to be in deep soup. So this is the whole point, that he has wasted his entire life. He has got no clue of swimming. Neither he knows how to chant Hare Krishna, nor he knows how to swimming. He is not going to save his life. He is going to die. So what is the use of all this big knowledge? People are studying so many things. You can see, if you go to any big library, there are sections and sections of books about various subject matters. As Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out to Parikshit, Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrashah Apashyatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grihamedina. There are so many subject matters to study, but if those subject matters are not going to invoke about the transcendental subject matter of how we are not this body, we are spirit, soul, what is our connection with the Supreme Lord? If that is not understood, then what is the consequence? You will just waste your human form of life. You will again be born. There are some people who are very much studying about the reproductive system of the frog, or they are studying about the termites, whole lifespan of termites, and how the termites are. There are books. Scientists are doing heavy research, but they do not know, if they are not going to learn about the science of Krishna consciousness, well, they may become a termite in next life. They may become a frog in next life. It's a very pathetic situation. So we have to learn the science of Krishna consciousness, learn the art, how we can develop this knowledge. The process Krishna is detailing here. So this is so important. Prabhupada further in the purport is pointing out, of all descriptions of this process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Maichananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. So there are 20 items of knowledge discussed. So it has got no particular value. That's the whole point. But if one takes a devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop within him. This we discussed the other day when we were discussing the qualities, 35 qualities we discussed. Krishna is glorifying about different qualities of his devotee. So everything sprouts from the quality of surrender of this pure devotee. So yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvai gunaihi tatra samasate suraha. So because of the unflinching devotion a person has for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the good qualities sprout. And another important quality Prabhupada is mentioning here, of all these qualities, how one develops this knowledge, the principle of accepting a spiritual master, as mentioned in the 8th verse, is essential. Even for one who takes to devotional service, it is most important, acharyopasanam, that is being explained here. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of God, Sri Krishna, clearly states here that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculated beyond this is nonsense. So that's the whole point, the whole system of trying to understand the scripture. The whole idea in the modern days is we are trying to measure everything. We discussed before also. Miyate anaya iti maya. That means what? Maya means what? When you try to measure anything, in the modern days, everything we are trying to measure. We are trying to measure the spiritual subject matter also. But the spiritual life begins with the quality of amanitvam, Krishna discusses. And that comes by accepting a bona fide spiritual master. So, how to be humble? First of all, we have to accept a bona fide spiritual master. We should understand that I do not know anything. Let me go and then approach a bona fide spiritual master. Let me learn from him. If we are very puffed up, then what are we going to learn? Nothing we will learn. We need to, before also we discussed, understanding means standing under. If you want to drink water, what do? We have to go down, water is up. Now that you stand like, you are just like a bamboo stick, and then it's not possible. You have to go down. Similarly, we have to understand what is our position. We are ignorant, we need to be enlightened. To be enlightened, we need to hear from enlightened personalities. So that is very important point. And another point is that, see, what is the problem in the modern day education? People, they study so many subject matters. You can see there may be so many students there are so many professors or many people, they study, they cram, they call it cramming. Cramming means they can speak about so many subjects. Pages and pages of information they can give. They can give the chronology of events. So many things they can speak, but at the end, they will be so puffed up. Vidya dadati vinayam. By your knowledge, how we know that a person is knowledgeable? Immediately we can see that the person is humble. Not that you know so many things and you are so puffed up and arrogant. It's a useless thing. Because by education, one should have the spotless character. What is the use? So what is our endeavor? To have this Gurukula system. In the Gurukula system, immediately what is being pushed? Right from day one, control of senses, control of mind. The moment the student comes and then surrenders his life to the spiritual master, what the Guru does, he engages him in devotional service. First thing, amanitvam, humble. Humble means first you control your senses. Wake up early in the morning, go out and take bhiksha. What the disciples used to do, they go house to house. Bhavati bhikshan dehi, they go and beg for food. And then they bring whatever that is given. Not like, you go, I don't want this, you give me this. No, whatever that is given, he collects it and then he comes and then hands it over to Guru. In Mahabharata, there are so many instructive stories, we don't have much time. There are so many amazing stories which explains in Mahabharata how a sincere disciple got the mercy of the spiritual master simply by controlling his senses and mind according to the instructions of the spiritual master. And by the Guru being satisfied, the knowledge is transmitted. It's not just some bookish knowledge. You learn some 700 verses or you have learned the entire books that you are expected to study. Like we have in the modern schools, we have some syllabus given, you have something to study. I have studied this, I have learned this, I know this translation, I know this. What you have imbibed, what you have understood, that is so important. So that is very, so knowledge and humility, both are very much related. And so the prerequisite is, as Krishna is speaking here, humility. And there is a very profound definition Prabhupada is giving here about humility. Many times, personally for me, it's a very inspiring text. Many times I used to read this text because we are so ignorant and so arrogant and so puffed up in this material world. Even for practicing devotees who have come to Krishna consciousness, many times, because we are not matured enough, we have not transgressed the conditioning, we are all the time expecting some kind of recognition, some kind of appreciation from others. As a result, what happens? We become disappointed when we don't get that appreciation. Or simple point, we might have done something really good. Somebody might have ignored it, or somebody may even pass a critical comment about it. We cannot tolerate it. We get so much disturbed and we become so demoralized and we lose our enthusiasm. You all, every one of you individually, you can touch your heart and then ask this question, how many of you have this experience? Every one of us have this experience. But we just see the definition here, what Prabhupada is speaking about humility. It's really such an amazing definition he is giving here. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. See the point? It's very, very deep statement actually. You don't be anxious to be satisfied. Okay, yes, honor me. You do something and then you expect that somebody should honor. It may be anything. You might have driven well. You might drive the car very well. You might have cooked very well. You might have done some wonderful decoration. You might have gave a very good lecture. You might have done a very good, maybe apparently nice kirtan. Whatever. I'm just relating it with respect to devotional aspects. Then materially, there are so many things you might have done. People become depressed. People become depressed when they are not recognized. But then, on the other hand, it is also when we see someone is doing something very nice, we naturally appreciate. If we don't appreciate, that is actually we are envious, isn't it? When we are envious, we don't want to appreciate others. So this is again a different quality. But the point that I am trying to relate to here is that, so actually a person who is humble, he doesn't expect any glorification from others. Even if he is glorified, how does he approach it? He says that actually it is all the mercy of the Supreme Lord. It is all the mercy of my spiritual master. This is it is not something, we are artificially imposing it on our mind. This should be our approach. This should be our vision. Then you see, we will never be demoralized in our life. We will always be very happy. This quality is the quality of a pure devotee. Not so easy. Artificially we can jump to it. But at least let us strive for it. Isn't it? Then gradually we can overcome. And then we should say this way, this Krishna consciousness movement, it's not a sentimental movement, it's not an emotional practice. It's very philosophical as well. When we are morose, then we can just preach to ourselves and say, hey, why are you like this? Why are you expecting that somebody should glorify you? Why are you expecting that you need to be recognized? So then we become very peaceful. Yes, why am I'm doing it to please Guru and Krishna and to please the Vaishnavas. Well, also another gross level of we are not being humble is somebody may correct us for our benefit. Then immediately our Swarupa will come out. Shut up, I know I know better than you. This is very gross, I am saying. And what to speak of the subtle. See what Prabhupada is pointing out here. Not to be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. I tell you, it's not easy. It is not at all easy. It is very easy for a pure devotee. But that is the mercy of we get from our pure devotees. Srila Prabhupada very mercifully showing us here what is actually humility. And some people think that they are really humble. A person who is humble, he never thinks himself to be humble. Okay. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. So honor, dishonor, it's all pertaining to this body. He understands this. One should not be anchoring after this material deception. That's why Krishnadas Kaviraja Goswami, when he is explaining about this humility, what he says, you wear a jewel, he says, and then string this verse. Which verse? Pranadapi sprichana taradopi sahishuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sada harihi. We want to enthusiastically chant the holy names of Krishna. Then two qualities we need to acquire. One is Trinadapi Suni Tarorapi Sahishuna. Even irrespective of someone recognizing us or not recognizing us, what we do, we give respect to them. Not easy, difficult. And then, even if we are, like, he gives the example of this grass, even if it is stamped, the grass doesn't revolt, isn't it? It is just, so these are the qualities of the great pure devotees. So, as we practice this, so what is the key point here? When we just hear this, these are all some kind of utopia, we cannot think. These are all impossible, Prabhuji, it's not possible to achieve. No, it is all possible. That's why Krishna is speaking this. It is possible by regularly hearing Harikatha, chanting the holy names of Krishna, following the principles of pure devotion. So at the beginning only Prabhupada, what he says? Srila Prabhupada says, all these qualities one can develop. How? By remembering our principle of surrendering to Krishna. Our attitude to surrender to Krishna, take up the devotional service. We are conditioned, we are lacking all these qualities, we are having material desires. Nevertheless, simply with that determination to surrender and serve, these qualities will manifest. So that's very important. So also, there's all this Bhakti-śāstra course, every Sunday we are writing exams. All those things will be tested. When it will be tested? At the time of death it will be tested. How much I have learned, how much I have scored marks. Good, we have to try this, okay. But how much we are applying it in our lives every day. See, devotional service is also, it's not just, just a weekend practice. It's a momentary surrender. Every second, what are we doing? That is accounted. So also in the beginning of the Bhakti-śāstra course, we remembered, we may get a certificate at the end of this course. But simply having a certificate is no use. How much we are applying that in the knowledge that we have gained will become Vijnana. Jnana will become Vijnana. How? When we apply this knowledge in a very submissive spirit. So that's an important thing to learn. And also so many other things also we learn. We do not become exploiters. When we are humble, we don't try to exploit others. This is again another very subtle thing. Within the community of devotees and even outside world, we don't have to say how people exploit someone. Just they want to dominate. They keep so many servants. They keep so many people. If anybody becomes a little bit knowledgeable more than him, and he tries to put him down. But then within the devotee community, in the neophyte stage, we also try to do that. We try to become the leader of some group. We try to dominate them. We try to control them. These are all complete neophyte mentality. So that also we need to take care, not to be carried away by that. So that's why when we come and surrender to the spiritual master, he actually smashes our ego. He is engaging in menial services. He is making us to engage in this service and then bring this quality. That's that quality of keeping ourselves simple and keeping ourselves humble. And another point is that not to be proud of our knowledge. This is one of the. See, pride means what? Simple definition we can understand. Because if you see amanitvam, adambitvam, two things are said. See, when we become proud. So let's say everyone has got different traits, different skills. Someone can decorate the deities so nicely, someone can cook exceptionally, someone can sing nicely, someone can have multiple qualities. Now, when one becomes proud, can you see? When one becomes proud, he's very proud of his activity. When someone is proud means that's very bad. That means that we do not recognize that actually Krishna is the ocean of all these qualities. So it is Krishna's mercy is reflected on us. Okay? And we have to engage whatever talents we have in Krishna's service. And when we stop recognizing that this belongs to Krishna, then we become proud. That's when, when somebody glorifies us, we really take it to ourselves. Yes, I can do it. I have this. Oh my goodness, there is a big problem there. That means you are not recognizing that it belongs. Actually, Krishna is giving us the abilities. Krishna is giving. You just think for a momentary second. If now I am able to raise my hand. If I am going to get a stroke, my hand will be struck like this. I cannot speak one word. I am able to speak. I am able to do the activities because of Krishna's mercy. So if we do not recognize Krishna's mercy, then we become very proud. So this also is very important. By our education, we should not become proud. We should become, that should lead to humility. So it's very interconnected, these two, amanitvam, adambitvam. Otherwise Krishna says, It's all exhibition of demoniac qualities. Then what Krishna says, Dhambo, Dharpo, Abhimanascha, pride, conceit, anger. These are all the qualities of demons. So Prabhupada is pointing out, he says that we should judge ourselves how much we are by seeing these two qualities, Manitvam and Adambitvam. Where are we? Just we can ask, if we are just too much expecting, we can, that's why this, we also spoke about, smaranam, mananam, mananam is like we are contemplation, vichar, achar, vichar, prachar. Vichar is we contemplate, we have to really, not that, we just come, go, do surveys, just go, then just speak here or there, spend some time, sit and think what are we doing in our life. Where are we? We are reading and then we can think. This is why we are engaged in trying to read and hear. Shravanam should lead us to this. Think, where am I progressing? What am I doing? How can I improve myself? We have to think about it. Otherwise just life goes on. We should not be like zombies. Zombies means like completely like boiled vegetables. Just like come and then go and then just don't think. That's we have got a human form of life so that we can think. And by our thinking should lead to take up more service to Krishna, to surrender ourselves to Krishna's devotees, to do something in the mission of Srila Prabhupada. Not simply studying and then doing something. What are we doing for the mission of Prabhupada? Prabhupada sacrificed his entire life. His disciples are sacrificing his entire life. But we are just fighting for petty things. This should not be our life. So this is so important. That's why these qualities, when we discuss these qualities, again all these studies, the attitude so much matters. For what we are doing all these things, so that we can become pure, we can become instruments in Krishna's service. This should not be forgotten at all. So Prabhupada says, as for actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. So nowadays we have this problem also. There are people are speaking about so much rights. Nobody wants to discuss about dharma. So much of equal rights and all these things are discussed. So traditionally also we can see, the girls are trained by the parents, by the father is giving heavy training, he's controlled, she is controlled, and then when she goes to the husband's house, he's being again trained, she's being trained by the husband. All those things developed very good qualities in the candidates. So nowadays everything, free will, free thinking, independence, that completely ruins the life of the children. So they have to be very nicely trained, then they will come out with all these nice qualities. Okay, now Prabhupada further speaks about ahimsa. Non-violence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body, but actually non-violence means not to put others into distress. And you see here, Prabhupada is pointing out, people in general, okay, here you see we already discussed this point. One more time I will just point out. So unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. See here. Violence means if you do not give people spiritual knowledge. I am teaching him accounts, I am teaching him the science of metallurgy, I am teaching him navy, I am teaching him how to drive the car. So many things you may teach, so many things you may help, so many knowledge you may give. But if you are not giving the spiritual knowledge, actually you are giving violence to the jiva. Why? You are stopping the progress of Krishna consciousness. And another violence also, when you stop someone preaching to another person, that is also violence. You don't have to physically beat him. Just stop the preaching that is happening. That is also violence. So Prabhupada points out, one should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement. That is non-violence. So-called one big leader, he is speaking ahimsa paramo dharmo. This leader, he himself is eating, lamb, chicken and everything. What is the ahimsa he is preaching? Our big Buddhist leader is there. They call him as like a great person who has come, they give him an award and all those things. But what is, if you see his daily diet, this is what he is eating. And then also we can see another aspect. Some people have this misunderstanding that, you should not keep Mahabharata in your house. Why? It is promoting violence. If you keep this Mahabharata, then there will be fight in the family. Right? What is the nonsense this? Because you see, in the Mahabharata only there is a discussion of Vishnu Sahasranama, there is a discussion of Bhagavad Gita, And in the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you fight, he says. Krishna is promoting violence. Violence is required. In that particular situation, if the violence is not encouraged, that is actually improper understanding. In the non-violence that the common people are speaking, actually that is violence. The violence that Krishna is encouraging here, that is proper violence. That is the proper understanding of violence. Because here in that particular situation, non-violence will lead to chaos. In fact, when there is a violence required in a particular situation, if somebody is promoting non-violence, such a situation will lead to even heavy violence. Remember what happened in India. Gandhi, when just before the independence, what he did, he said ahimsa, ahimsa, and what he said, when India and Pakistan split, he said all the central funds, he said that we need to give, we should encourage, we should give funds to Pakistan, and we should give whatever arms we should supply. Then what happened? Then immediately when they got all those things, they wanted to attack India. It's like that story, same thing. They are just trying to attack. You see, when the violence is required, the violence has to be encouraged. Not unnecessary violence, but that's how the demoniac people can be controlled. So that has to be understood properly. Okay, another example also I was just thinking of. Now you think the doctor, you are going to the doctor, doctor is treating the patient, is coming with a knife, he has to remove the pus or whatever. Doctor, don't be violent, please be gentle. So such a foolishness to speak like that, okay? So but that cut, what he's going to do, is going to solve the pain that we are undergoing. After that, momentarily it will be even more painful, but after that such a relief. So these are all the misunderstanding people have. That's why also in the modern days, they don't want to, when there is, traditional Prabhupada gives an example, when there is someone engaged in stealing, what they used to do, he speaks about in Kashmir, many doors are kept open because the king will cut the hands. And when they know the hands will be cut if I'm going to steal, be very much afraid. And you will be scared to do any sinful activity. But now everything is very, very diluted, there is no heavy punishment, then everything becomes diluted, the whole society becomes spoiled. So that's the whole point. Okay. Shanti, tolerance. Tolerance, this word is not in the modern day dictionary. This dictionary is removed. Oh, it's very hot. Okay, let's put air conditioner. Oh, the climate is like that. Okay, let me go to some other place. Everything. This is the whole problem with this modern world at all. There is no understanding of tolerance whatsoever. Krishna at the beginning of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is immediately giving this knowledge of tolerance. Because you cannot keep altering this material world. Material world's nature, it is going to show its nature. Rather, we should change our nature and adjust according to the situation and get out of this material world. We are not meant to be part of this material world. And we are making all kinds of arrangements to stay in the material world forever. This is our foolishness. So Prabhupada points out here that we need to tolerate, develop these qualities so that we can focus more on spiritual life. Otherwise, what happens in these modern days? We just spend so much of our time and energy in trying to gratify our senses. That is one thing. So much energy is spent in trying to gratify our senses. And when some things are not favorable to gratify our senses, what are we trying to do? We are trying to adjust things. Adjust, all our time and energy is gone. And where's the question of thinking of spiritual life? So this is foolishness. So we should learn to tolerate. So Prabhupada immediately gives an example of Prahlad Maharaj. You see how Prabhupada is relating the previous one. He said you should tolerate the insult and dishonor. That's difficult, no? When somebody, even we can see, like we have experience, with Gurukula, small boys when they are, another boy will say something and then immediately he wants to punch him. Oh, how can you say about me like this? And then immediately fight. So this, that's why this training, right from young age, just to, you present it to your authority. You don't take law in your hand. After punching, I punched, you don't say. Before that, you come and then speak. So you tolerate a little bit at that moment, at least. So like that, we should learn. So Prabhupada is pointing out to Prahlad Maharaj how he tolerated his father. Okay, then Arjavam, simplicity. Simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. Wow, what an example Prabhupada is giving. So nowadays people are very complicated. Two persons are here. He doesn't want to come and then tell about something. He writes a big 5-page letter, communicate this machine, this point, some point or some difficulty he has. Sometimes very complicated. He has very complicated mind, doesn't express something very clearly, and that is one thing. Now, Arjamam, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also speaks about it. This is a important quality of a Vaishnava. Then, straightforward dealings also. And another thing is that you are keeping. See, devotee life is very simple. Doesn't accumulate so many things. One person, he was very much worried. That he was explaining about how he has difficulties in trying to satisfy the demands of his wife. She's having some 300 saris, and then what do you call that? I do not know what's the name for that. You have this makeup set, one bag, varieties of lipstick, varieties of so many other powders, and then handling this. So much money is being spent on it. It's all completely unnecessary, not at all required. Just lead simple life. Because what is the use of all these things? So that is being pointed out here. The simple life, whatever that is required to go on with our practice in this life, whatever minimal thing is required, use it and then lead a happy life. People otherwise complicate their life. You see before also in let us say example of India, in West, all these things. There is no, nowadays you see there are so many beauty parlors. There is never something like that before. It's all very within the family. That's all done. Now it is everywhere there are. You go to even Salem is a small place. There are so many beauty parlors. You go to Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, and other cities. There's so many places. Everyone they just go and spend hours and hours, just unnecessarily. And then also you can see Western style of dressing. All the different dresses are imported. And then there are big advertisements, and we can see both the boys and the girls pushing their parents to dress in a very, very modern way. By dressing in a modern way, they expose themselves, and it's completely dragging one to the bodily concept of life. The whole idea of the very practice of spiritual life means we are not in the bodily concept of life. We are trying to keep ourselves very simple. We try to keep ourselves. We don't, devotees also, you can see. They have simple, they use, even specifically those who are trained in the brahmacharya ashram, we have small mirrors. Sometimes we can see in some rich man's house, every house there will be some 5-6 mirrors, different angles they will see themselves. They come on the left side, the right side, and then, they have so much makeup. Life becomes very complicated. You more and more be entangled with the bodily concept of life. So Prabhupada says that, keep it simple. Don't complicate your life. Acharya Upasanam. Now this is a very important principle. As we said, you want to develop this principle. You say that you are humility. You want to practice humility. Should not be proud. All these things develop by submitting oneself to the spiritual master. This is the first instruction given in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also. And also the first instruction Krishna also is giving to Arjuna, how you can develop this transcendental knowledge. Go, bow down to a Tattvadarshi, one who has realized the truth, bow down to him, serve him. And by serving to him, you develop all the good qualities. Then another point to be discussed. Shaucham, cleanliness. Cleanliness is essential for making advancement in spiritual life. There are two kinds of cleanliness, external and internal. External cleanliness means taking a bath, but for internal cleanliness, one has to think of Krishna always and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now you can see India is becoming more and more westernized. Traditionally, in the Vedic culture, we can see people forget about practice of Vaishnavism. You may be from any background, any spiritual background. People usually used to wake up early in the morning. They used to take bath. Now, previously, we can see in many places, in Tamil Nadu, I would say, many places, they used to chant so many stotras. They will worship. And some of them will worship Vishnu, some of them will go to the temple, they have their own worship in their houses, all those things are happening. And then after some time we can at least see, even if they were not chanting stotras, they used to play the Vishnu Sahasranam of M.S. Subbalakshmi. For some of you who know, everywhere in every house they will be playing that. And then as time progressed, that playing of Vishnu Sahasranama is completely stopped. Everyone in every house now we have these, so many, I do not know what is the current status now, how many channels are there. Previously we had only Doordarshan, one channel, that program will be only for 3-4 hours. But then now we have 24 hours, 24 cross 7. We have how many channels, Prabhuji? Maybe more than 100 channels. So many different channels. A person is already going crazy, changing the channels. He cannot even just all the time. When we were in Padayatra, we were going to different villages. And then, so for one in particular village, there were not many people came for the program, for the public. Usually evening time, we used to do Sandhya Arati in a village. And then we used to have a half-an-hour talk. In one particular village, very few people were there. This was somewhere near Tanjavur. And then I asked the person, what happened? Nobody's coming. No. Everybody is watching one serial, important serial. I said, Bhava, this village, hardly there, everything, only huts are there. What is the question of watching serials? Then he said that no, it's all the mercy of the government. He has given free TV. Free TV, free egg, that was previously given. The government is spoiling the people. And also free internet connection they are giving. What they are doing is they are watching movies and all nonsense things. Their life become completely not. So cleanliness, why I am speaking about this thing? What it has got to do with cleanliness? Yeah, people become so lazy, so dull. Simply they want to do everything lying on the bed. What is this bed coffee, bed tea? All nonsense actually. Completely, it's even in terms of hygiene, it's so bad for the health. And when you are in tamas, you cannot differentiate. Pig where it stays, it's very happy to stay in the drainage. And its food is different. So our mentality become like piggish mentality. We become so dull. So and the moment one comes to Krishna Bhakti, first thing that we do, we always try to keep ourselves clean. The place where we are staying, some of us maybe are in the ashram, some of us are in the house. Go on, everybody, every day, keep your place clean. Unless your place is clean, your surroundings are clean, your cupboard is clean, your clothes are clean. You sattvam sanjayate jnanam. From there actually, one gets knowledge. Otherwise, we cannot understand anything. It's all superficial. One person was, so much he was quoting shloka, studying, he has so many grantha, this and that. And when we went and then saw, his room was complete tamas. What knowledge you are going to have? How the knowledge is going to be revealed to you? So this is so important that externally you should keep yourself clean. For internal cleanliness, so important is to engage in devotional service primarily by chanting the Hare Krishna Mantra. This is such an important aspect. So that's why Prabhupada said, even with the deity worship, two important things. One is cleanliness, another one is punctuality. Clean. Everything should be kept clean. Unless we are not kind of a cleaning maniacs, Why it has to be kept clean? So that is to please the Lord. Everything should be kept so clean for the pleasure of the Lord. So then another extreme is keeping everything super clean at the cost of chanting Hare Krishna. Not like that. We should keep clean and then also we should chant Hare Krishna. Both the things are required. So this is because it's very interrelated. Because when by the atmosphere, keeping everything is very clean and then trying to please Krishna, that is a proper attitude. So that's why Krishna is speaking about this shaucham. Then stairyam is steadiness. Steadiness means that one should be very determined to make progress in spiritual life. Without such determination, one cannot make tangible progress. So this is the whole point. We should have this vow. I have taken a vow. I will continue to practice these 4 regulative principles. I will go on chanting Hare Krishna, whatever may be the situation. Now it is favorable, it is unfavorable. In all situations, I will chant Hare Krishna steadily, going on day in and day out. That's very much required. Now we should always remember, I am an eternal servant of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Bhakti is a perfect process. I will not leave this process in any situation. So that shows the steadiness. Just keep going on and on and on, practicing Krishna consciousness. Atma Vinigraha, self-control. And self-control means that one should not accept anything which is detrimental to the path of spiritual progress. So self-control means what? Then, now if we just 1 minute see what Krishna is training us and what the modern technology is teaching us. Modern life, there is no question of self-control. It's a question of indulgence. Indulge. This is what is being promoted, isn't it? Buy this, buy that. Somebody may be having, he may be Let's say he may be having some simple two-wheeler, okay? It is okay, he's managing his life, everything is going on. Somebody has bought a car, then immediately, oh, I'm having only a small, simple two-wheeler. Maybe when will I get a car, or when will I get a bike? So like that, become very complicated. Buy this, buy that, smartphone. Now I am having this phone. I buy this smartphone, that smartphone, iPhone, this phone, me, body. This is all. There is absolutely no control at all over the senses. So what Krishna is speaking, Atma Vinigra, self-control, this is very much required. This is a basic principle. This is what Srila Rupa Goswami is teaching us. The spiritual life begins with self-control. That is why association of devotees is so important. And when we are in a community, we are exposed, isn't it? That when we are not in community, in privacy, we will do so many things. But when we are in community, we need to, everything is seen. You cannot be just, leading your own life. And that is good for us, isn't it? That's why when we are in association of devotees, they will help us. Hey, come on, you are in Maya. Chalo, what are you doing? Time to go for Gaur Aarti. You are watching India versus Pakistan cricket match. Smartphone, use the smartphone for hearing Krishna Katha, not for watching stupid serials, or spending hours and hours trying to, you are going to find some solution for the Ukraine-Russia war. Doing analysis, left, right and center, doing so much analysis. For what? What are you going to do about it? Very nice lecture we heard every 3-4 days back. Maharaj explained there's so much point. Oh, you may get to know what it is, but why are you just indulging your senses unnecessarily? So that's an important point. Indriyarteshu vairagyam, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification. So the same point is being discussed. Senses are so strong, one should control. Prabhupada speaking about control of the tongue, eyes, genitals, all those things needs to be controlled. Then anahankara, false ego. False ego means accepting this body as oneself. When one understands that he is not this body and his spirit soul, he comes to his real ego. So we discussed this point before. So ego, others are so puffed up. I am such and such. I am a Aussie. I am a Japanese. I am this. I am that. But how does devotee identify himself? I am Krishna Das. Gopi Bhritya Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasanudas. That is our identification. When the sense of self is applied to the reality, that is real ego. There are some philosophers who say that we should give up our ego. This is another extreme. But we cannot give up our ego because ego means identity. We ought, of course, to give up the false identification in the body. So, there's some of the bogus speakers are saying, no, you just give up the I-ness and then you merge. No, what is the question of merging? There is no question of merging. We are always, our identity exists. We individually exist. We will discuss more when we study on the 18th chapter. How they say that actually when the rivers, they merge into the ocean. The rivers merge into the ocean, the acharyas are explaining. Still, the atoms and molecules are separate. He gives the example of the fish. Still, the fish very nicely swims in the ocean. It remains, it is maintaining its individuality. So, I-ness cannot be destroyed or it cannot be merged. The I-ness, the proper identification of the I-ness is to I am Nitya Das, Jeev Krishna Das, A Vishwas, Korle Toyar Dukona. That should be our identification. Oh, here is another amazing point. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam. How many of us are seeing it? A sadhu can only see that. That's why we will see, Krishna will explain in the 15th chapter, he will say that who is Pashyan Apina Pashyati, who is actually seeing? Jnana Chakshushaha. One who has got proper knowledge, he will see, oh, in this material world, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi. Otherwise, simply people are saying, someone died. In a neighbor house, someone died. Oh, immediately, I need to become, anytime I am also going to leave the body. Let me become more serious in my practice of spiritual life. Let me chant more attentively. Let me render more service. Let me take up the spiritual life more seriously. This is the vision of a devotee. Devotee knows this material world is not for enjoyment. Every time he sees something, he is relating to the sufferings in this material world and he becomes more serious. And he preaches, gives his knowledge to others. And he is the one who is actually seeing. Why the sadhus are traveling everywhere and preaching? So that they are going to different houses to eat nicely. That is not the aim of the sadhu. So that he helps the conditioned souls. He helps the people in family life to remind themselves about Krishna. So remember in the 7th chapter, in Esham to Antagatam Papam Parpat, Prabhupada said that the devotees wander around the world. For what? Just to preach Krishna consciousness. So this is an important point. So everybody is undergoing disease and old age. Bogus gurus, they never say that. Everything is fine, everything is okay. One old lady, she's really old, almost 80 years. She's coming and then crying to one so-called guru. My eyes are I'm not able to, I'm having difficulty seeing. Don't worry, everything will be fine. You ask her, you should tell, anyway, you are going to leave the body sooner or later. Now you spend a lot of your time in hearing Krishna Katha. That is, chant more rounds, chant more Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Not that we are trying to be being cruel, let us suffer. No, you should tell, the moments are going to come anytime. It's not that only for old ladies going to die. Every one of us may face death anytime. So we should take up Krishna consciousness seriously. We should not waste time. This is the whole point. Asakti anabhisvangaha putradara grihadishu. Detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest. So this is only a devotee can do this. Devotee has a clear understanding. He takes care of his wife, he takes care of his children, he engages them in Krishna consciousness. Simultaneously he is detached also. Not that for every small thing he is just 24 hours when he is meditating on how to increase my bank balance, how to keep myself in a very comfortable position. No, he is depending on Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sets the example. He says that Manasa deho geho jo kichumor harpilu tuva pade nanda kishore. He says that I am my body, my mind, my words, my wife, my children, everyone I am offering in your service. So that means what? He becomes, he becomes so dry. He is very easy, he is emotional, he is caring, everything is doing. At the same time, he sees that the Krishna consciousness is practiced by his family members. Otherwise, he is not sentimental. And he may be very strict also, times for bringing his wife and children to the practice of Krishna consciousness. So that is very much required. So Prabhupada is giving a formula how the family people can be Krishna conscious. You please carefully read this. He says, if one can mold his family life in this way to develop Krishna consciousness, in which way? Morning and evening come together and chant Hare Krishna, honor prasadam together. So in such, when in the family life this is being centered, then there will not be big fight and misunderstandings and like that. Definitely, in the modern day life, even from behind, when there are two souls, there are two opinions. And two opposite souls, there are definitely a lot of different opinions. But someone has to be submissive and someone has to understand and go together. But then when the center becomes Krishna consciousness, then one can mold his life. That is what Prabhupada is pointing out. But if it is not congenial, not favorable, not for spiritual advancement, then family life should be abandoned. That means what? Well, one should not unnecessarily give up the family life. A time is given, there is no question of divorce. There is a question of vanaprastha, that is there. Vanaprastha is being encouraged, that voluntarily at one point of time when the responsibilities are taken care, one gives up the family life. So that's how Krishna is speaking about. Not that till the last breath one is thinking about how to facilitate his vamsa and how to increase the bank balance and all the facilities. That's why it's very difficult for us to give it up. Krishna has given us a very nice system. In the Varna and Ashrama, systems are made. Even-mindedness. So this already we discussed in the second chapter of the Gita. Krishna is speaking about when Arjuna is asking about the qualities of Sthita Pragya. So what Krishna says, Dukkeshu anudvigna manaha, Sukeshu vigata spriha. Exactly that is what is being spoken here. Nityam cha samachittatvam. To being, it is easy to, when we are in difficulty, we are thinking so much. When we are in happiness, we don't think about it. But to be sober in both the situations, that is required. Then this is the important quality. At the beginning only Krishna spoke about Navavida Bhakti. All these qualities can be developed by Maicha Nanya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharini. So devotional service to Krishna without deviation. That is what is required. And so that's an important point of all the qualities being discussed. From there, everything else sprouts. Vivikta Desha Sevitvam Aratir Jana Samsadi. Aspiring to live in a solitary place. So that means what? We may be part of this community, society, but we are not attached to it. We don't just go and then so much waste our time in social gatherings. But there may be some social gathering, that too devotee does it for purpose of preaching. Otherwise, he doesn't waste his time unnecessarily going for Rotary Club, going for this club, that club, and then having some meetings and wasting his time. Then, this is another important point Krishna concludes. Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, accepting the importance of self-realization. Which college is teaching this? None of the college. So that's the whole point. So one should endeavor for spiritual life, and that spiritual life should also be endeavored under the guidance of bona fide spiritual master. hearing about the principles of bhakti, studying the books of Gita and Bhagavatam, and then learn how to surrender one's life in Krishna consciousness. So he says, Nityam, always, there should be philosophical conviction. And with philosophical conviction, that's what we discussed. We are not just sentimentalists here. With philosophical conclusion, we understand, we practice, and we make progress in spiritual life. Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. That is how we have to point. Bhagavan is the last word in the realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should reach up to that platform of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus engage in the devotional service of the Lord. That is the perfection of knowledge. What is the perfection of knowledge? You may get to know about we are not this body, we are spirit, and then one may even get to know about the Paramatma. But when one comes to know about Bhagavan, understanding the position of Bhagavan, understanding our relationship with Bhagavan, and engaging in the service of that Bhagavan who is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one will attain perfection of knowledge. Then Prabhupada concludes his purport, beginning from practicing humility up to the point of realization of the Supreme Truth, the Absolute Personality of Godhead. This process is just a staircase beginning from the ground floor and going up to the top floor. Now on this staircase, there are so many people who have reached the first floor, second or third floor, but unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, he is at the lowest stage of knowledge. So that's everybody according to the realization, they are at some stage. Hari Charana Dushas Taratamyam Cha Tesham. Srila Bhagavad Vidyabhushan Prabhu is pointing out. Everybody is in different levels, but they all should come to the level of Vasudevam Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. That's where one should come to that stage. The Prabhupada further says, if anyone wants to compete with God and at the same time make advancement in spiritual knowledge, he will be frustrated. So, to think oneself as God is the most puffed up, although the living entity is always being kicked up by the stringent laws of material nature, he still thinks I am God because of ignorance. So, the beginning of knowledge therefore is amanitva, humility. That's why any rascal who claims himself to be God, Prabhupada was very heavy on him. He said that he should be kicked on the face with the boots, he said. Prabhupada even said, I will urinate on his face. Very heavy words. But why? This is the most demoniac thing, to equate oneself with God. But our real life begins when we understand that we are servants of God. That is when the spiritual life begins. So this knowledge we get in parampara from the bona fide spiritual master who has heard as Krishna has given this knowledge to Arjuna. You see, this is the whole problem with the modern civilization. Nobody teaches this. But we want to get knowledge, real knowledge, come and hear from the Bhagavad Gita. Everything else is ignorance. So that is being pointed out. So I stop here. If you have any question, I may take one question. Question or realization or any other point. Meanwhile, I'll just read one quote from the Bhagavad Gita lecture. If you have any question, think about it. Prabhupada, the same point that we discussed, Prabhupada discussed in one of his lectures. Vidya dadati namrata. Vidya means he must be very gentle, namra. That is Vidya. Education does not mean unnecessarily to become proud. Just like we hear that even a great scientist, Sir Isaac Newton, used to say, what knowledge I have got, I have simply collected few grains of sand from the big beach. Yes, that is humbleness. Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
This manifested already. Again, you are adding
no, okay. Yes. When we are discussing the 24 elements, the pradhana is also discussed because from pradhana, okay, the question is, you spoke about that pradhana in the avyakta form you discussed. Why are you adding it as one more element? Because already from pradhana everything has come out. That is what your question is. No. The point is that it's not that we are discussing the state that everything has come out. We are discussing what are all the 24 elements that are there. From that avyakta state, everything is coming out. So that avyakta is also, pradhana is also there. So in details, every distinct elements is being discussed. So you don't get confused with when the Lord glances, then the manifestation happens. But now we are discussing about the details of every element. Now let's say it's simple to understand is there is a computer. But when the computer is in the dismantled state, what are all the elements that are there? That is being discussed. Okay. Anything else? Okay, if there are no questions, we will stop here. So tomorrow we will discuss about the object of knowledge. Jnaya, we will discuss about that. And we will see how it goes. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. I just request all of you, please go through this purport, make points from this, all these 20 items of knowledge and try to think about it, contemplate it. Hare Krishna.